I have an alter ego, and her name is Norma. Norma Lillian. And if you put the words together, Norma and Lillian, and connect them up a different way, it pronounces normally a man. She's the bearded lady, self-proclaimed bearded lady of Las Vegas. And she started years ago, when I was living in Ohio with my husband, a bear group in the gay and lesbian community we were good friends with, had a talent show, a little variety show. And one of the actors hurt his back. And my friend looked at me and said, "You're a ham. You've been on stage before. How would you like to be part of our group?" And I was like, "Well, what's that mean?" He goes, "Well, you wear a dress and you come up and we'll do Beyonce Bootylicious." And I laughed and I said, "I've never done drag before in my life." I said, "I won't shave." He goes, "You don't have to. It's bear drag. You wear your beard, and the bigger the better." And at the time I was about 260 pounds, and I was the smallest of the three of the group called the Dallas Pike Lot Lizards. And the three big bears got up there and performed Bootylicious by Beyonce. And it was a fundraiser. And that's where Norma was born, because I was up there shaking my booty, and the audience was giving tips, and I knew I had it in me. I've always been in theater, but I've never done drag before, and it's more comedic drag. That's when Norma was born, and she's pretty much been nonstop since, and that's been about 10 years ago. Norma's old school. I never consider myself a drag queen, even though I kind of been put into that category. Norma performs when there's a benefit, when there's a good cause, when there's a fundraiser. The group in Ohio, Camp Sunrise, is a summer camp for children with HIV and AIDS. And that's very, very important to me. I got out of high school in the mid-'80s, and I moved to Pittsburgh. And I had a side job while I was going to art school at the Pittsburgh Public Theater. And the theater community in the early to mid-'80s was hit hard by AIDS. And I was this young country boy from Ohio who was living in downtown Pittsburgh working at a professional working theater, and we had our first AIDS benefit. And I saw the effects that AIDS had on the gay and lesbian community. And at the time, I was not out. That's a long story. But at the time, I wasn't out. And at that moment, AIDS impacted me. And it was a disease that impacted the people I knew and I worked with, but not personally. And then when I got older and I eventually did come out, I had realized that I had lost a lot of classmates from college who had died of AIDS. And that's kind of been my fundraising background. Is if there's an event going on, I will support it if it's geared more towards the HIV and AIDS community, because there's still a fight going on. And that's why I'm such a strong supporter of the Sin City Sisters here in Las Vegas. I was born and raised in a rural part of Ohio. I did not have a big reference to the gay and lesbian community. My only gay references in high school I can remember is we had a substitute theater teacher who was rumored to wear house coats in his house trailer, and my mom always said Liberace was gay. And those were my two references until I got into college. And I didn't come out till late. I was actually married to a woman and had a stepson for 5 years. I came out late in life. I was 27 when I came out. So at that time, mainstream being gay there was still a struggle going on, and it was primarily focused around AIDS. And you'd see the newscast reports of the pride parades, and you'd see half-naked individuals with pride flags, and it was a community I was not familiar with. Until I got older, and I actually came out and started really looking into the community and the community centers in the areas I lived in, such as Pittsburgh. I lived in New Mexico for a while. Did I realize that I was a part of that community and I could make a difference? I've never hidden to anyone after I came out who I was. I'm an openly gay man. If you ask me about it, I will tell you I'm an openly gay man. Someone walked into my life unexpectedly, my husband, Derek, walked into my life unexpectedly. I was not looking to get into a relationship, and there was a spark. And there was that special Hollywood type of moment where you hear the birds and you feel the bells and the tingles, and I'd never felt that in my life before. And I knew this person was something special. And the relationship bloomed. It developed. And one year, we decided, it was legal to get married in California, when it was first legal to get married in California. We were going to Disneyland for gay days. And our room wasn't ready, which nothing makes me madder than when the rooms aren't ready. So we said, all right, let's go to Santa Ana and get our marriage license. I filled out all the paperwork online. I said, let's go to the courthouse in Santa Ana and get our marriage license in Old Orange. We got down there, went upstairs, got our marriage license, and the woman behind the counter said, well, why don't you just get married? And we looked at each other and went, well, why don't we just get married? So within 5 minutes, we agreed we were getting married. We had a person who was sitting in the courthouse there. I believe she was a lesbian, but she had bags of rice for all of us who were in line to get married. And she was our witness. And the woman got her judge robe on, and we went into the little courthouse area and got married. But our fight now is a little bit different. We've been legally married in the state of California. We're not legally married in the state of Nevada. And it's a fight. I don't want to come into your church and change your beliefs or your rules. I want to be recognized in the United States of America as an equal. That I can marry another individual, same sex. I can marry another man, just as if I could marry a woman, and when I did, and have equal rights across the board. I don't want anybody telling me what I can and cannot do. It's a legal right. I don't want to change your spiritual beliefs. If you do not believe in that, then I'm not going to force you to. However, I pay my taxes just the same as everybody else does. And it is a right for me as a citizen to have equal rights in marriage. After leaving college, I actually met a woman. She was a friend of the family's. Met a woman who was divorced, who wooed me into her boudoir one evening. And it was a very interesting relationship. She was an older woman, and I fell in love with her. I dated girls and women throughout my college years. At that time, I never thought I'd get married to a woman. But yet I never knew the gay lifestyle. So I got married, loved relationships with a woman, but I still in the back of my head was attracted to men. More in a physical sense, not a sexual sense. I envied how they looked. I envied their bodies, their physical sports abilities. And it wasn't until after my divorce. I didn't come out until probably 2 or 3 years after my divorce. I started reading a lot. I started going out with some gay friends that I had at work. And there was one individual who I got very close with. And one night it became intimate. And it was the first time I was 27 years old. It was in April. I can remember that. That we became intimate. And it was the most natural thing, I believe, at that time for both of us. And it was very comfortable. And after that point, I thought to myself, I might be bisexual. So I started reading. We had great little bookstores in downtown Pittsburgh. St. Elmo's, which is no longer there, was one of the best and first gay and lesbian bookstores. And I took a bus there with sunglasses and a hat on and went into the bookstore and bought everything I could get about coming out and who I am and my sexual identity. And I would buy $100, $200 worth of books a month and read and read and read. And it started to make sense to me. Then I thought, well, we have to do this officially. I was going through a divorce at the time, and there were poison arrows being slung back and forth. And I went to a therapist. I went into the gay newspaper, went to the back of the gay newspaper and looked for a counselor or a therapist. And I scraped the money together to go visit. The first visit was $150, and in the late 80s, that was a lot of money. And I sat and talked to the individual, the doctor, for probably 2 hours. And at the end of our session, he goes, Jim, you've just come out. And I said, what's that mean? He goes, you just basically have told me you're gay. But what you need to do is you need to get involved with the community. You need to have more physical experiences with other men to make yourself more comfortable with who you are. And I kind of laughed, and it was kind of like a release. This big pressure was off my head, and I said, yeah, you're right. And I'm still a very, very, very country individual. I'm kind of reserved, even though my alter ego, Norma, the crazy drag queen, I'm very reserved when it comes to relationships and meeting people. And it was a process. There were times I felt alone. There were times I felt suicidal. There were times where I would go out on drinking binges because I couldn't figure out who I was. But inside there was that positive energy that I knew eventually it would come to me. And it popped, and I realized this is who I am. And that's when, and I don't remember the name of the book, but one of the most powerful books I ever bought was a collection of letters that was compiled into a book from individuals coming out, gay and lesbian individuals coming out to their parents, to their spouses, to their brothers and sisters. And then there were letters from the spouses and the parents back to the individual. And it was very positive for me. Nothing negative. That's when I decided my process to come out to my family would be written letters. And the first letter I wrote was to my mom and dad. I can remember I sent it to them on February 13th. It was right before Valentine's Day. It was 12 pages, legal paper, typed on a word processor, old school, front and back, so it was almost 24 pages long, and it was pretty much, Mom and Dad, this is who I am, and this is who your son has become. Until this day, I still read it, and I still tear up, because my mom's response was wonderful. She basically said, this is the most incredible thing, we still love you no matter what, come home and we'll talk about it. So there's always hope. My passion in this life is to pay it forward. If you have the ability to help someone, it's twofold. It snowballs. Give until you can't give, or until you're uncomfortable with giving, and then give some more. Let it grow again and give some more. It's like an apple tree. You take the apples from the tree, you'll have a few apples, but give most of them away. And then the season goes, and then the apples grow again, and just keep paying it forward. And the seeds from those apples that you give forward and you pay forward, it makes a difference. When you tell people, there was a huge event, a social event here in town, in Las Vegas, the Sin City Sisters Red Dress event. And it's an AIDS awareness event where you have to wear a red dress, representing, saying you are proud enough to wear a red dress, no matter who you are, to understand what AIDS and HIV does to our community. For the last 3 years, my husband and I have had a cocktail party at our house prior to the event. And what I do is I try to invite a mix of people, some people who have been to the event before, and some people who have gone to the event numerous years. Get them together at the house, give them a cocktail, have a little bit of food, and then make a presentation and say what you're about to experience. The reason I'm inviting you to my house is because I want you to support financially and physically by volunteering or writing a check to this group of individuals that I believe in. There's a lot of community organizations, a lot of charitable organizations in this town, and they each do something good for their community. And I'm a firm believer of letting people know that you're actively involved and you want to pay it forward. The LGBT community in Las Vegas is strange in a good way. We feel that Las Vegas is this big metropolis, but really Las Vegas is a small little western town. The heart we have is our tourist corridor, the Strip. But within that strip, that heart of Las Vegas, there are so many gays and lesbians and supporters and friends. And combined with that, that is where our money is. But it's very hard because it is now corporate America. I'm fortunate because I work for one of those corporations on the Strip, and I have connections where I'm in the community and I can put two and two together. I can make a phone call and say, so-and-so needs a little help with this. Can you give them a call? Talk amongst yourself. And that's what's vitally important in Las Vegas for our LGBT community. And I'm so proud of our new center because that's what happened with our gay and lesbian community center here in Las Vegas. It was a small, little, rundown facility for years. It was a beautiful little center, but it was rough around the edges. And it was really hard if a family was new to town and they wanted to bring their LGBT child to this community center. It was really hard to fathom when there was a swingers club on one side and a bathhouse on the other. And that was a hard pill to swallow. And it's hard for me to say that because I don't want to offend people, but I know how the other half thinks and lives in this town. Our new center is incredible. It is a cake with all the bells and whistles and all the icing. But the most important thing in that center when I walk through is I see names of powerful people, powerful corporations on every door, on every nook and cranny. And what that means to me is that community center, every stone is supported by Las Vegas and the people in Las Vegas, the movers and the shakers. Because they want to be a part of it. And it might be trendy now to help the LGBT community. And it's going to come to a point soon that we're going to blend in. It's going to be the community center. And we're going to be a part of everyday life, whether you're gay or straight. And I think that's my balance is I'm living and working and breathing as a gay man in a very committed relationship. Married, not legally in the state of Nevada yet, but in California, and I respect that. I respect that foundation we have built, and I share that with individuals that I come across. So there is a balance of when I meet people, I introduce my husband. I don't introduce my partner, because partner could be a business partner. They question that word. He's no longer my boyfriend. He's my husband, and I'm proud of that. So that is my balance of this is who I am. You're not seeing a facade. This is who I am. I'm Jim McCoy, and that's my chapter and verse.